When we think about designing a better future, like building a utopia, we usually think about what we need to add to the world.
Right.
We
Yeah.
picture, I don't know, gleaming skyscrapers, flying cars, limitless clean energy, maybe some highly advanced AI managing everything so we never have to actually work.
Yeah, we assume the solution to our current struggles is inevitably, well, just more. More technology, more infrastructure, more laws.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The human instinct is almost always additive.
Yeah.
We try to engineer our way out of problems by creating new, really complex systems.
Yeah.
But what if the only way to save humanity was to take an enormous eraser and just delete our identities?
I mean, it goes against everything we're taught.
It really does. But that is the exact premise of this bizarre, super provocative document published on March 5, 2007 by an author who uses the name Deiform Celestial.
Which is quite the pen name, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And the document is titled Viewing the Human Society Mode of Life in the Future from the Perspective of Lifechanyuan.
It's a mouthful.
It is, and it outlines a radical blueprint for a future human society known as the Lifechanyuan era. So our mission for this deep dive is to objectively unpack the mechanics of this proposed utopia, examine the author's rhetorical strategies for, convincing skeptics, and really explore what this text reveals about the human desire for a perfect world.
And I should probably step in here for a quick neutrality check. Just to be completely clear to you listening, we are not endorsing or taking sides on this ideology. Not at all.
Nope, not our goal today.
Right. We are just acting as impartial guides. We're analyzing the source text purely to understand the ideas and the specific worldview presented in this 2007 document.
Okay, let's unpack this. So from the very beginning of the text, Deiform Celestial wastes zero time. They dive right into the defining characteristics of this proposed world, establishing the baseline of the Lifechanyuan vision.
And it is a drastic baseline.
Extremely drastic. They list 4 major institutions that they claim will cease to exist. No country, no religion, no political party, and perhaps most surprisingly, no family.
What's fascinating here is how this utopia is defined entirely by subtraction.
Right.
Because if you look at standard political theory or religious texts, you generally find the promise of, like, a unified global government or a single universal faith.
Some kind of coming together.
Exactly, a consolidation. But Deiform Celestial isn't arguing for a better government or a truer religion. They are suggesting that removing these 4 foundational pillars of modern human identity will result in everyone being happy and free from daily worries about food, clothing, shelter, and transport.
Which is a massive claim. And they use some really poetic language to describe this, right?
They do. The specific quotes used in the text are quite striking. The author writes, "No one pockets anything found on the road. Doors unnecessarily to be shut in the evening, for no thieves drop in."
Wow.
Yeah, and they go on to say, "A person of virtue won't be abandoned away from government. Honesty prevails throughout the world."
I mean, it sounds a bit like John Lennon's song. Imagine, right? Imagine there's no countries and no religion, too. But this is taken to an absolute literal extreme where even the concept of family is dissolved.
Yeah, Lennon definitely left the family unit intact in his song.
He did.
Yeah.
And that's what trips me up. How does an author even begin to convince people to give up their families and their nations? Like, if you read that in 2007, your first thought is just, this person is out of their mind.
Well, the author actually knows you're going to think that. They don't wait for the criticism. They write it directly into the text.
Preempting the skeptics.
Exactly. Deiform Celestial lists the specific insults they anticipate from the reader. They say people will call it wishful thinking, daydream, fantasy, and impossible.
That is a classic debate tactic, voicing the audience's exact thoughts to disarm them. It's like they're looking right at the reader and saying, I know exactly how crazy this sounds to you.
It forces a kind of psychological reset. Because if you're reading it thinking, well, this is impossible, and the text immediately says, you probably think this is impossible, you're suddenly nodding along. You're in agreement with the author.
Right, they built a bridge.
Yeah, and the author's rebuttal to this skepticism is really clever. The text admits that if this were just preaching, or conceiving, basically, if it were just a theory, it would be impossible.
They concede the point.
They do. But then they pivot. The entire argument relies on the claim of practice. The author claims to have, and I quote, successfully carried out a series of activities without the consciousness of country, religion, political party, and family.
So they're telling the listener that They don't have to believe the theory because a small group is already successfully living the reality.
Exactly. It shifts the burden of proof entirely. You cannot argue that human flight is theoretically impossible if I just point to an airplane flying over your head.
Right, the proof is in the pudding.
Mhm.
Or, well, the flying plane. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because if they claim this is already being practiced, how exactly is it being implemented? What are the metrics for success here?
That's where we get into the actual mechanism of change, which is wild.
Yeah, so let's talk about the specific term used for the followers. In English, they're referred to as a Chenyuan celestial. But in the original Chinese text provided in our source, the term is Chanyuan cow.
Which translates to Chanyuan grass, right?
Exactly, grass. And the author makes this really surprising admission that they don't need all of humanity to join right now, which is counterintuitive for a global utopian movement.
Well, their metric for success is incredibly localized. The text highlights this specific measure, saying, as long as hundreds of people on the planet believe in the idea and live a happy life, that will prove a success.
There's hundreds of people.
Just hundreds. It's a highly localized, micro-utopian strategy. The text relies on the idea that the consciousness of these traditional institutions, country, religion, family, naturally disappears as more people of all races join.
But wait, I have to push back on the logistics of that. If you only need a few hundred people to prove the concept, how does a tiny peaceful group of grass trigger the transformation of the entire rest of the globe without forcing anyone?
Because they view it as an organic underground spread, like the root system of grass. It just pops up everywhere. But there is a much darker catalyst for this global transformation.
Yeah, because we go from this peaceful pastoral utopia to a scenario of, like, desperate survival.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a severe tonal shift right here in the document.
Oh, massive. The imagery they use is so vivid and intense. They write that when the time comes, people will try to squeeze into Lifechanyuan by any means necessary.
It completely drops the peaceful vibe.
It really does. The scene is described as being exactly like a drowning man in a vast sea who sees a boat and swims frantically toward it.
The implication is terrifying, honestly.
I know, right? The rest of the world isn't just misguided. It's depicted as a vast sea where everyone is actively drowning.
And Lifechanyuan isn't just a nice place to live anymore. It is framed as the only lifeboat. The author ends this section with a real sense of inevitability. They say, many people may not be able to see it in their lifetime, but they can understand it.
Almost like a prophecy.
Exactly. And then they write, the blessed ones will see it when the day comes. It's an exclusionary promise.
Only the blessed will make it to the boat.
Yeah, you either drop your attachments and get in the lifeboat now, or you drown with the rest of the world later.
Which makes the concluding phrase of the document so bizarre to me. After all this terrifying imagery of the drowning masses, they end with this phrase, wait and see.
Which is actually a translation of a Chinese idiom, right?
Yes. The original idiom is about riding a donkey while reading a songbook. It essentially means, let's wait and see, but it has this extremely leisurely, almost playful tone to it.
It conveys this unshakable confidence, like, I don't need to stress about this. I'll just read my book on my donkey and wait for you all to figure it out.
Exactly. The confident tone of the author juxtaposed against the terrifying imagery of everyone drowning is just wild.
It really is a masterclass in radical persuasion.
It totally is. So what does this all mean? When you step back and look at this 2007 document, whether you view it as a fascinating philosophical experiment, a fringe ideology, or just a study in persuasive writing, it taps into a very real modern exhaustion.
Oh, absolutely. The fatigue of modern life is immense.
Right. It offers this radical, one-stop solution to the complexities of global politics, religious conflict, and even familial stress. Just erase it all. Get in the lifeboat.
But that leaves you with a really profound question, something to mull over that the text doesn't explicitly answer.
What's that?
Well, if entering a perfect, stress-free utopia requires the absolute erasure of your nationality, your belief system, and even your family.
Everything that makes you.
Yeah, exactly. Is the person who eventually climbs aboard that lifeboat still actually you? Or does achieving a perfect world require leaving your actual self behind in the water?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy thought to leave on, but a completely necessary one when we talk about this kind of absolute subtraction. Well, that wraps up our analysis for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.